All right, Jack Yates again. Another video for South by Southwest. I am a graduate student in the Masters of Marketing program. Excuse me. And for this video, I'd like to talk about the Museum of the Future House, which is a 5-day activation event open to all badges. That's free, but for some reason they give you a ticket to when you walk in. This event was interesting. It wasn't bad, but it was a little confusing. I don't exactly recall the time of day I went there. I think it was in the evening, maybe around 4:35ish, because I mentioned the time specifically because the description of the event says that it'll be hosting a series of panels throughout its 5-day stint, but doesn't really say when or where they're going to be happening. So that made it a little confusing. So from the outside, it looks really interesting. And I know this is, again, I want to emphasize, it's a satellite, an outpost, to use their words, from an actual museum in Dubai, which I'm sure is really, really cool. But it's strange. So you queue up for the event. I went into it because I kind of wanted to learn, again, in this perspective of AI and startups. I thought this was going to be about, well, what does the future hold? You know, trying to look forward in this for the sense of innovation and startup innovation, and AI is, always a part of that. And it did mention having some AI involvement in when I heard about it. So I went, okay, let's go, let's do it. So when you walk into the Museum of the Future, they scan your ticket and you go into this room that is a circle. It's a circular room. And the ceiling has this mirror that doesn't cover the whole ceiling, just sort of the center of it. And all the walls of the room are LED display screens, which are showing a series of what was described as data paintings because they were created by AI. And there was some very ambiguity wording on the wall about how it's about human memory and organic life coexisting at once. And it said it was created by a guy called Rafik Endral Studio, and it was called Earth Dream. Sorry if I mentioned that already. And it was taken by using millions of photos of the natural world to sort of train an AI data set to generate whatever it wanted to generate. So it was, I guess, a large imaging model that used just images of the natural world, which they don't really explain even what that means. I don't know if that's photos of trees or landscapes or bugs or animals. I'm not sure. But it was the wall description, again, there was a big text on the wall about it. It said it was deeply immersive. To me, it just kind of looked like a strange rotating visualizer of nonsense. And that's not to sound critical, but there was sort of no discernible like anything to it. It was just sort of fractals exploding in and out of each other, and it changed from orange, yellowish, which I guess maybe was like photos from a desert, to sort of a green, lighter shade of green, fractal explosion kaleidoscope thing, which I guess maybe the AI model learned from trees. Major takeaway from the first part is that AI in a lot of regards still has some ways to go, unless they wanted it to look like that, unless the models that were trained on the data that was the images of millions of images of nature was purposely set up to look like that. It was a really weird experience. I'm not sure what I really took away from it. One of my tracks for this course is AI. Forgive me if I'm repeating myself, but so I was very interested to see it and sort of walked out of the first room going like, oh, okay. You could see a lot of people sitting on the floor literally and just staring at it and disassociating and it was kind of hypnotic and cool. But frankly, I don't get too impressed by any art made by AI. It's not my jam. The lack of human element doesn't interest me, so maybe I'm a little biased. But moving on, the next is you walk into another room which is set up perfectly for a panel. There's like 3 or 4 chairs with a table in front of them with a circle, half circle around them with rows of chairs. But when I walked in, a panel was just wrapping up where they were talking about space initiatives in Dubai, and they clapped and left, and I waited around after that for 10 to 15 minutes. No other speakers came on. I even asked someone, and they said they didn't know when the next panel was going to happen. So again, after 10 or 15 minutes, I sort of went, okay, let's move on to the next room. And the next room isn't really a room. It's sort of an outdoor garden space where they were giving, I don't know if they were giving it away, but there was a stand selling, I don't know if they were giving away or selling it, but there was a stand with chai tea that had a massive line of probably 50 plus people that I was not about to wait in. And then there was a South by Southwest merch booth and a turf floor, which was kind of ironic because in the description, I think they called it a garden. Most gardens don't use real grass, from my memory. And that was it. It was a small museum. I kind of fail to see how it's a museum. And I guess you can kind of work the angle of like, well, there's an AI installation and AI is the future, so maybe calling it the Museum of the Future House works. Seemed like sort of a stretch to me, because how can it be the future if I'm looking at it right now? But again, I'm coming into this as someone who's spent the last several weeks reading multiple articles on AI and the innovation that it can do and the incredible things that it can do, but also reading about how it has, a ways to go still. And I think that was my main takeaway from this event. And like I said, I may be biased here because I don't get too impressed by AI art. It's art made by a machine, whether a person programmed it or not. It probably would have been really cool to hear the panel about Dubai's space initiatives, but I never really got that far. It wasn't as disappointing as some other events I've been to. It was like cool, it was fun, it was interesting, had potential to be more interesting. But again, I'm very interested in AI. I chose it purposely for one of my tracks. So I wanted to go in there and I really was hoping to see some museum quality information about the future of AI. And instead it was just kind of an art exhibit and an empty panel and then a place to sell you merch. So a little disappointing, kind of cool, but in some ways a bit of a letdown. But glad I did it. Glad I went.